In this video, basically, what I want to do is I want to give a very brief and not entirely detailed discussion about what moral epistemology is, and I couldn't possibly go over every way this is applied within ethics in one sitting here. That wouldn't be possible. So I'm just going to go over ways that things that moral epistemology is within metaethics and normative ethics, and there's various different ways that this can be applied, and it's basically giving moral problems, assessing moral or giving moral problems when it comes to a certain metaethical theory or normative theory that one has as to moral knowledge or moral justification. Now, metaethics. Metaethics is ethics or ethical theories about what morality is, and it's a question as to if morality is, if it's a real thing in itself, or what morality actually is, if it's a natural thing, that's naturalism. And I have various videos about naturalism, and questions just about morality itself and what it is and how it is. Moral epistemology is basically questions about moral knowledge and moral justification. Epistemology is really about belief. It's really about belief, justification, and knowledge. And here we're basically talking about morality. And within metaethics, we can talk about moral epistemology as to how can we know that a certain theory represents entirely what the reality of morality is. So in a way, moral epistemology relates to moral metaphysics or moral ontology, because we can ask questions as to if you're a moral realist, how can you know that morality is a certain way? And somebody who has that theory has to come up with a certain way in which we can have knowledge of it being that way, or at least justification of that. Now, justification or knowledge in epistemology until Edmund Gettier was justified true belief, and then Gettier came along and caused difficulty with that. And following in the 60s and 70s and beyond that, there was question as to what that really, as to if that really is the case. But for the current purposes, knowledge is basically justified true belief. Can one be morally justified that in a belief that morality is a certain way? That's from the metaethical way that we can discuss moral epistemology. And it's basically questions about do we know or are we justified in believing a certain thing about morality in different ways. The other side of ethics, normative ethics, we're talking normative practical theories about how we figure out what right and good actions are, like consequentialism or utilitarianism. Those are theories about what good or what good action or what good behavior is. And deontology, it's a deontology and virtue ethics and feminist ethics and and relational ethics. Those are just different theories about what constitutes a good action. And I personally am in the virtue theory in the virtue ethics camp because I have seen problems both with deontology and consequentialism, and that's why I'm in that camp. When it comes to normative ethics, the question is, how can you know that acting a certain way? How can you know that acting by, say, Kant's categorical imperative is good or is right? How can you know that living by some moral obligations that are morally absolute under certain deontological theory is really what is good or really what is right? How do you know that if you're a consequentialist? How do you know that? How do you know that acting a certain way will yield you the best consequences? Because in those theories, it's about maximizing happiness, maximizing utility. Excuse me. So the question is: are we justified in believing certain things about morality and the good and the right? Now this is just very vague, and it's very brief, and I couldn't possibly discuss like all ways that we. It's just like the field of how can we be justified or have knowledge in believing certain things about the way morality is, and there's just like I said, there's various ways it can be applied, and I'm making this video because I think it's important to think about, because I see problems with all normative theories. I guess I'm thinking more about normative theories here, because I think there's epistemic problems that can be that can be I guess charged towards people who are consequentialist or deontological ethics, or if they hold that, or if they hold a virtue ethics. Now, virtue ethics, I think, is the best one because it still has some kind of epistemic issues as to how we can know that being courageous or being beneficent is good or right or virtuous. But that's, I think, is the smallest amount of epistemic issue that we can possibly have, because the other two main ones, I think, are plagued with a lot of epistemic issues. Thanks, and sorry I'm sick and I keep coughing, and I probably shouldn't have even made this because of how coughing I am.